All right, everybody, we welcome you back. It's the Justin Kinner Show live here, Dayton's ESPN Radio, 1410 Wing AM. The Justin Kinner Show presented by our friends over at Frickers. Frickers, your home for fun, food, sports, and spirits. Last night, the Cincinnati Reds, well, they got beat up a little bit by the Boston Red Sox, of course. The highly anticipated second outing of the career for, of course, Chase Burns. Well, it was much shorter than we had anticipated. Things did not go as planned. And joining us now to talk all things Reds and Cincinnati Bengals, friend of the show, Charlie Goldsmith. Charlie, it's been a while. How are you, sir?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm not bad. I appreciate you giving us some time here today. Look, we were all looking forward to seeing last night to see Chase Burns back out on the mound. We saw how well things went that first time around against the New York Yankees, striking out his first 5 batters, of course, and lived up to the hype. Now we were excited for that second stint, and it did not go well. What happened last night? There's, talks of potentially maybe tipping his pitches a bit. What are you hearing? What went wrong in your eyes last night for Chase Burns?
Yeah, it was a little bit of everything. Were there cases where the Red Sox knew it was coming? Maybe, certainly. You had Terry Francona leaving that open. But I also think, too, there were just moments where the Red Sox were ready for mistake pitches that Burns left up over the plate. It honestly, too, was it tipping pitches? Was it not? Doesn't really matter. What really matters is Chase Burns clearly has things to work on. Chase Burns clearly is going through the adjustment at the big league level, going through that process, the type of process that you typically iron out in the minor leagues. This is all a part of it. And whatever the underlying reason was, what matters less is what it was. What matters more is the approach of figuring it out and figuring it out in a way that keeps the Reds in position to win games. Now, I think Burns will do it. But yesterday was a reminder that this is all going to be a part of the challenges that any non-Paul Skeens rookie faces with this little minor league experience.
Yeah, that was kind of the thing, too, is obviously there was some comparisons or at least just being mentioned in that Paul Skeens category. So the problem when that happens is Paul Skeens made it look easy. And to kind of your point, it should look the same for him. And at times it did look like that against the New York Yankees. Obviously, it was a wake-up call last night for everybody. And I think probably, right, Charlie, he kind of falls in between what we saw against the Yankees and what we saw last night. Maybe he's not as dominant as what we saw at this stage of his career against the Yankees, but obviously not as poor as what he was last night. That's easily the worst outing he has had at any stage since being drafted by the Reds less than a year ago.
The Reds believe pretty strongly that Burns gives them a good chance to win every fifth day. And that feels right. He's obviously not an ace, but he's also not a guy who's at the level of someone who you'd call up for a spot start and kind of cross your fingers and hope you get 4 or 5 innings. There is a good, solid amount of confidence in what Burns will give the team every fifth day, putting them in a position to win. Just he didn't do that yesterday.
Charlie Goldsmith hanging out with us here again. The Cincinnati Reds back in action tonight, game 2 against the Boston Red Sox. Last thing here on Chase Burns, quick. It was interesting, this timeline of when he was called up. I think he had 13 starts from the time, he arrived in Dayton up and, through Louisville and then called up last week against the Yankees. It seemed as if the Reds were in no hurry to move that timeline or to kind of speed up his progression through the minors. And then out of nowhere, we unfortunately have that setback with Hunter Greene. It's been kind of silent on the Hunter Greene front. And then last week when they announced that he's coming up, is there any crossover there? Should we be looking into that more of, they obviously veered away from that timeline for Chase Burns? Is that kind of telling us that maybe we are far off from getting Hunter Greene back, or are there signs pointing towards getting Hunter Greene back relatively soon?
No, Green's here in Boston. He has a live bullpen tomorrow. And then I believe he has another one of those, and then he'll start a rehab assignment. So Green's, he called the rehab process very smooth as he continues to get closer and closer to game action.
All right, well, that's a good update. It would be, fascinating stuff, too, to see what this team could do, especially if they get this entire rotation healthy. When Hunter Greene's pitching at his peak, know what Chase Burns is capable of. We've seen glimpses of that, obviously. Andrew Abbott's been phenomenal. Is he the most underrated Red at this point for considering the season that he's had?
That's the beauty of it. Andrew Abbott's been underrated his whole life. I don't think he's underrated anymore. I think we're talking about Andrew Abbott now. And what's been cool is he's a guy who's always going to fly under the radar because he doesn't throw hard, because, he doesn't light up the radar gun. He doesn't come out and you're like, wow, this is unbelievable. I've never seen anything like it before. But he really has that consistent effect when you just look at the productivity. While he's flown under the radar, again, he's not as much anymore, and he's earned it for multiple years with just how he's pitching. And then the run of sustained success creates more of a spotlight. And that's something he probably should have been getting sooner.
How would you evaluate the month of June? It's kind of wild that it's already July, but I don't know about you, but when I was looking at the month of June, considering how inconsistent they looked in April, how up and down they looked in May, and then you saw the teams that were on deck coming up in the month of June, I thought June was going to be the month that buried them. I thought that June was going to be that month where we start, finding any Bengals topic that can really carry a show at this point. I was taken back at just how well this team kind of elevated its play. Obviously, some new faces added in the offseason, first year with Terry Francona. But when you look at the month of June, where you had to go to Cleveland, you sweep the Diamondbacks, you take 2 or 3 from Cleveland. Obviously, you beat Minnesota. But then to go on the road, take 2 or 3 from Detroit, take 2 or 3 from the New York Yankees. The month of June was very, very successful considering the doubt that I think many fans even had for this team heading in. How did June end up for you? Were you surprised at the amount of series that they were able to take considering the level of competition?
They just played really good baseball. There were a lot of different players that stepped forward. There were some clutch and tangible moments that popped up over the course of June. You had Ellie De La Cruz at the peak of his powers. June was very successful. June is what they're trying to be as a team. Building on this, sustaining it, keeping this identity and brand of baseball going and continuing, that's going to be the trick. But June was a very successful month as the Reds got to feel like, all right, this is who we are when things are going well.
They continue, obviously, the series with the Red Sox. Obviously, then they got a series with Philly. And then they have a very manageable 7-game stretch heading in to that All-Star break. Look, I know you're going to get a ton of trade, deadline questions, and it's not going to not be the show. I am going to throw that at you, but obviously it seems like we don't really know what this team's going to be at the deadline. When you talk about the identity of this team, we know they rely heavily on this pitching, but for this team, it's like you either need them to be really, really bad, so it makes it easy for the front office's decision on what they want to do at the deadline, or take off. They maybe haven't taken off, but they've definitely shown you that this is going to be a team that's going to compete down the stretch. What do you anticipate when we get to that trade deadline as far as the activity for this team at that point?
Right now, they're obviously in position to be buyers. Now, what doesn't happen is there's just not going to be much action between now and until after the All-Star break. So it is an interesting few weeks, specifically the Noelvi Marte comeback. How does he look? Is he the plan and the idea at third base for the rest of the season? How do these young rookie relievers look? And then just how does a very tightly condensed NL wildcard race kind of sort and order itself out? I think the answer to your question really is let's learn more about these Reds over the next 3 weeks, because that will shape and determine what the true deadline strategy is going to be.
Ellie De La Cruz declines the home run derby invite. Were you taken back by that? Why the decline by Ellie De La Cruz and his side, do you think?
He's playing every day. What more do you want from him? No.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
I think that's a part of it. And here's a part of it too. The All-Star experience isn't created equally for all. At last year even. Ellie was on the short list of top 5, 8, 10, guys under the most spotlight during All-Star week with the demands they have, the interview requests, all sorts of requests. There's so much on your plate, and some players do kind of get to fly under the radar during kind of the All-Star week and show up and play in the game and have a nice time. But then it's a lot for a lot of players, and Ellie's certainly one of those guys. So he's already got a very busy week prepared, and was it, not to put it like this, but was it worth it adding the tax and the strain of a home run derby? Obviously, he decided it wasn't, and that's completely understandable.
Charlie Goldsmith covers the Reds and the Bengals, of course. And real quick, before we let you go again, we appreciate you giving us some time today. Cincinnati Bengals, one of the bigger updates as of late has been, it appears they got that stadium lease situation all ironed out, just days before the deadline, of course. Just thoughts on that, of course, as I don't think anyone was panicking, thinking that anything horrible was going to happen, but I think people got a little uncomfortable as it was getting closer to the deadline. Any big takeaways as far as how the city and obviously the organization handled the negotiations with the lease?
Just this, that I think it's incredibly, incredibly meaningful and a part of the fabric and structure and identity of the Bengals, that they are that they are a downtown Hamilton County, right on the banks, right in the middle. That's such a huge part of the fabric of who they are. And I'm lucky enough to be able to cover a lot of these road games, and you're driving 20 minutes to get to the middle of nowhere, and you're like, why is it like this? And that stinks for everybody. The Bengals don't have to live with that. And that's what it's all about. Even more than the wins. The wins are great, but even more is representing your city in that type of way. And the Bengals will keep doing that.
Off-season started. All the talk of Jamar T, not really, I think it was when you were on Off the Bench with us, you said the most over-talked about storyline is the T. Higgins thing. Finally get that put to rest, and then Trey Hendrickson, he kind of takes the baton and has been running with it. Obviously, every time it sounds like something new has broke regarding this situation, it's just a new way to say what we've already known, is that, hey, these both sides seem to be far apart. How does this end? I mean, there's some other similar situations, even in the division with obviously the Steelers and Watt at this point. But how do you envision this ending? Is he going to miss time in camp? Is this going to bleed into the season? With what we know now at this point, with July getting underway, how do you envision this kind of playing out as camp gets closer and closer?
Having covered a few of these, the biggest thing I've learned is kind of the reminder that people are unpredictable. Like one day, one side, the other side, both sides, who knows? Maybe this isn't going to happen, but who's the best safety or the best cornerback in the NFL? Like we just saw the Minka Fitzpatrick and Jalen Ramsey trade. Like who knows? What if the Broncos say, "Hey, Pat Surtain for Trey Hendrickson"? Now that's not going to happen, but people are unpredictable. So I'm not kind of the read I have and like the reporting I have on the situation is someone's mind obviously is going to change at some point about some topic, whether it's the trade, whether it's the contract you're willing to take, the contract you're willing to offer. Someone's mind is going to have to change at some point. Who's that going to be? Again, people are unpredictable. And that's the vibe I keep getting. We don't know. And everyone's kind of waiting. And now it's kind of at a standstill, stuck point with everyone out for summer break.
It doesn't always have to be a good guy and a bad guy, like it's a movie role with the villain and an antagonist and all that, protagonist and this and that. But the Shamar Stewart situation, although very similar to Trey Hendrickson pursuing what they want to get from this organization that at times has been very stubborn. Is there a good guy, bad guy in this situation? Are the Bengals wrong for how locked in they are? Taking Shamar Stewart with the number 17 pick in the first round, but not being willing to budge at all when it comes to the language within the contract. Is there a good or a bad guy in this situation? And how do you see this one playing out? In similar question to what we just talked about with Hendrickson.
I don't know. The thing I keep going back to is the pre-draft stuff, which is that Shamar didn't come in for a visit. It seemed like. For example, Al Golden talked to Stewart's College DC like 3 days before the draft. Like, was there more prep that could have been done with Stewart before the draft to maybe have a better feel for how this type of situation would go in terms of maybe laying the groundwork there or just having a better read on how it all be handled? Could there have just been more information in the process before the draft? That's something I keep going back to. But again, it's another example where people are unpredictable. Shamar has obviously done some things that, in terms of his public comments and skipping mini camp, we wouldn't have predicted that. No one was predicting that. So again, it's unpredictable people that I think that's just the best way to say it. It's summer break. There's no leverage moment coming up. No one's missing anything right now. So it is very much a quiet standstill at this point.
Last thing on the way out, Charlie, Zach Taylor. Obviously, we know just how vitally important it is. I mean, September. I mean, you could say, hey, the most important month is the last month of the season. You want to be that last team holding up that Super Bowl trophy, of course, and that's something that's very plausible for this Bengals team, no doubt. But the one thing that always gets in their way is that month of September. Is Zach Taylor on the hot seat? Do you think he's on the hot seat? Is this a make or break year? Is it a make or break month in September for Zach Taylor and the Cincinnati Bengals team?
I don't think so. I still feel very good about, most importantly, Burr's relationship with him, the way the offense has continued to evolve. I think you need more time to see the defense play out. Obviously, it's a team with high expectations, and those are well earned. But I'm interested to see this team kind of maybe how this team is different from last team, how that group kind of evolves into this season. That's kind of more how I look at this whole situation entering the year.
All right, good stuff. Charlie Goldsmith, awesome enough to give us some time talking all things Reds and Bengals. He covers the Reds and the Bengals. Charlie's Chalkboard, of course, the newsletter. You can subscribe to that. He's a contributor to Fox 19 over in Cincinnati, the Power Stacks podcast, and, of course, the Growler podcast. You're a busy guy. Charlie. We appreciate you. Thank you so much, Charlie. We appreciate you.
Thanks.
More of the Justin Kinner Show presented by our friends over at Frickers. Frickers, your home for fun food, sports, and spirits. We'll be right back.